I never imagined a millionaire would save my family. His heartwarming act changed everything. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. My world crumbled around me in a heartbeat. The phone echoed with my mother's voice, trembling and thin, tears mingling with words of desperation. I felt the walls closing in, a vice tightening around my chest. It was a rainy Wednesday afternoon, the kind that seeps into your bones. My mom was sick. Not just a cough or a cold. No. She was lying in bed, pale and shivering. We had no money for her medicine. My younger brother Alex, just 8, wandered the small apartment, oblivious to the darkness that loomed over us. His laughter was a fragile bubble bursting against the hard reality around him. We were drowning. Then my father had left when I was little. I still remembered him, a shadow in my life. A silhouette that didn't care enough to come back. I often wondered if he thought about us. If he regretted his choice. I let those questions swirl in my mind, like autumn leaves carried away by a gust of wind. And then, in walked Victor, the millionaire. I hadn't expected him. I didn't even know he existed until that day. He stood there, this tall man with a presence that filled the room, like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. His tailored suit looked out of place in our worn-down apartment. But there was something in his eyes, a warmth, a kindness that seemed to melt the chill in the air. "I can help," he said, his voice smooth and soothing. I barely registered the words, my heart racing, thoughts tumbling over one another. Who was this man? Why was he here? It felt surreal. As he reached into his pocket, his hands trembled slightly. Strange, was he nervous? I could see the lines of worry etched on his forehead. It was so unexpected. Millionaires don't get anxious, do they? They don't stand in dingy apartments offering help like it's the most natural thing in the world. He pulled out a check, thick and crisp, the kind you only see on TV, and handed it to me as if it weighed nothing. The number stared at me, bold and terrifying. It was more than I had ever seen in my life. My hands shook as I took it, the paper cold against my skin. But in the pit of my stomach, something twisted. I did not trust this kindness. There was a mystery hidden behind his generosity, and I could feel it lurking. Why would he risk his reputation helping a family like ours? What was his angle? As I looked into his eyes, I noticed a flicker of something dark, something I couldn't pin down. I felt as if I was standing at the edge of a cliff, the ground beneath me crumbling. I wanted to dive in, but the fear of the unknown held me back. "Thank you," I managed to whisper, but the words felt heavy, weighing down my throat. My mind raced, questions flashing like lightning. Who really was Victor? What would he want in return? The silence stretched, thick and suffocating. Then my mom called from the bedroom, her voice feeble yet tinged with hope. Victor's eyes darted toward the door, a flicker of something in his expression. Anxiety? Anticipation? I wanted to scream, to shove that check back into his hand. But deep down, I knew we needed help. And here it was. But at what cost? I steadied my breath, trying to banish the doubt swirling in my heart. But the unease lingered like a shadow looming over my family's fragile grasp on hope. Would I take the leap, or would I let us fall? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The days that followed felt like a surreal dream, a montage of hesitations and quiet moments woven into my family's fragile rhythm. Victor's check brought an immediate relief. My mother was able to go to the hospital and get the treatment she desperately needed. I watched as the color slowly returned to her cheeks, as she started to regain her strength. But each improvement was shaded with doubts, each smile she gave me a reminder of the unsteady ground we were all standing on. Every night before bed, I would count the money in our jar, a mix of coins and crumpled bills that represented each day we slid further into desperation. But now that jar overflowed with Victor's generosity, and each time I turned the key in the lock at night, I was left with the gnawing possibility that I might have unwittingly bound our family to something sinister. "Do you think he'll come back?" Alex asked one evening as we shared a plate of spaghetti, his innocent face a picture of delight mingled with concern. He looked up at me with wide eyes, as if Victor were some kind of superhero who would swoop in and fix everything. That I shrugged, 1,000 words hanging on my lips, too heavy to utter. What was there to say? That Victor's kindness came with strings? I wanted to protect my brother's childlike optimism, but the truth had sharp edges, and I could already feel it cutting deeper into my consciousness. That Saturday, when the rain finally stopped, I noticed something. A carefully sealed envelope slid under the door. I picked it up, a mix of dread and curiosity sinking into my stomach. It bore no return address, just my name scrawled in familiar handwriting. My fingers trembled as I tore it open, scanning the note written on the pristine paper. "I hope this finds you well. Please allow me to check in on your family soon. There are things you must know. You are not alone." The words made my heart race. What did that mean? What things were there to discuss? Did it come with another request, another favor I wasn't ready to fulfill? I collapsed into the tight embrace of our tiny couch, staring at the note. I could feel the shadows creeping back in, whispering sinister possibilities. In moments like this, I often sought refuge in my mother's presence, her sourly sweet perfume wrapping me in a familiar embrace. I tiptoed into her room, where she rested propped against several pillows, a soft sigh escaping her lips. There she was, my anchor in a sea of chaos, and I poured the stress of my doubts into the words that flowed between us. "What if he's not who he says he is, Mom? What if this is all a trap?" I finished, feeling the weight of the uncertainty pressing hard on my chest. She reached out, her hand weak but steadying. "Honey, sometimes help comes from unexpected places. You must trust your instincts. And if your heart tells you something is wrong, then be cautious." Her voice was gentle but unwavering, a tether pulling me back from the edge of my spiraling thoughts. "But what if?" Enough with the what ifs, she interrupted softly. "We have no control over the future. Let's focus on today." Her eyes met mine, and for a moment, I saw the strength that had nurtured me through countless storms. Maybe my fears were unfounded, remnants of a past that haunted me. But the unease nagged at me incessantly, a voice persistently warning me against crossing lines I couldn't see. That night, while Alex snuggled deeply into the blanket, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, the note resting on my nightstand like a silent jury. The moonlight cast soft shadows that danced around the room, lulling me into a false sense of security. But soon the weight of sleep was lifted as a sudden realization struck. Might wasn't only Victor the first should be wary of. It was the life we had always lived. In the dead of night, I found myself up and wandering the apartment. As I stepped into the thin substitute for a living room, I came to discover the window ajar, a gust of cold wind swirling around me. Something caught my eye. The light flickered, illuminating an envelope that lay on our dusty coffee table. My heart raced as I bent down to inspect it. Inside was another note, this one less courteous than the last, handwritten and frantic. Its message chilled me to the bone. "You took his money. You'll owe him more than you could ever repay. Watch your back." An icy shiver settled into my bones. The darkness wrapped around me like a cloak, and in that moment, I felt utterly exposed. Victor's good intentions suddenly felt like shackles binding me to a world far darker than I had ever imagined. As I glanced back at Alex, blissfully unaware, I was filled with anguish. How could I protect him from a storm I had unknowingly invited into our lives? In a heartbeat, the future stretched before me like a vast, treacherous ocean, and I realized the only path forward was fraught with uncertainty. And just then, there came a knock at the door, a definitive sound that seemed to echo through the suffocating silence. My heart raced anew, caught between a desperate hope and a paralyzing fear. I hesitated, knowing that whoever stood outside had the power to change everything. The knock reverberated through the dilapidated hallway, each echo sending a ripple of dread through me. My heart pounded in sync with the relentless thud against the door, a soldier on the front lines of an emotional battlefield. I hesitated, wrestling with fear and curiosity, caught in a moment where everything hung by a thread. "Don't answer it," my mother called from her room, her voice barely reaching me. "It might not be safe." The panic laced in her words did little to quell the instinct knocking at my consciousness, urging me to take a step forward. Private thoughts danced between us like shadows in the gloom, but Alex, stirring from his dreams of superheroes and tall tales, nudged me gently. "What if it's Victor?" he whispered, eyes wide with excitement. I took a breath, reminding myself of my mother's advice. "We need to be careful." With a reluctant sigh, I moved toward the door, each step a battle of resolve. My fingers brushed the cool metal of the knob, and the world outside seemed to converge into a singular, fragile moment that as I opened the door, a gust of wind rushed in, carrying with it the scent of rain-soaked earth and something sweeter, more inviting. There stood a figure cloaked in shadows, the dim light revealing just enough to send my heart racing with bewilderment. "Hello, I'm here to see you," said a voice I recognized, yet it felt sinister in its familiarity. Victor. The sight of him was both a beckoning promise and a foreboding cloud, the man whose generosity hung like a weight over my family. "Victor. Now." I stammered, caught off guard. His presence felt like a tidal wave threatening to wash away the personal victories we had fought so hard to reclaim. "May I come in?" he asked gently, his tone even, as though he hadn't just sent my world pirouetting into chaos. Doubt tugged at me, but hooking my arm around the doorframe, I stepped aside, allowing him entry. "Alex, go to your room," I directed, desperation creeping into my voice as my little brother vanished from view. As the door clicked shut, Victor's demeanor shifted, his calm exterior betraying an urgency beneath. "I wanted to check on your family," he said, his gaze sweeping the familiar clutter of our living space. "I see you received my letter. What do you want?" "You didn't answer my question." I struggled to contain my rising apprehension, the memory of the threatening note still fresh in my mind. "You must understand the gravity of your situation," he said, his eyes narrowing. "I'm here to help, yes, but there are forces at play that you do not comprehend. There's so much at stake." "Stop talking in riddles. Just tell me what you mean." I could feel the raw edge of fear sharpening my words, the walls tightening around me. With a measured breath, he loosened the tension. "I've made some inquiries into your family's circumstances since we last spoke. You need guidance, and I can provide it. But it comes with a price." His words hung heavy in the air, a teetering balance between what I needed and the darkness surrounding it. "And what is that price?" I swallowed hard, each syllable tasting like betrayal. A wry smile flirted with the corners of his mouth. "All I ask is your trust." "And what kind of trust?" I interrupted, desperation clawing at my throat. "It's easy to say that when you've already helped. What happens when we can't pay you back?" Victor stepped closer, his voice lowering, softening. "You're strong, resilient. But I've seen how this world can crush those who struggle. I promise you this: accept my help, and they'll protect you from what is coming." "What is coming?" I dared to ask, my heart quivering at the dark implications woven in his tone. He hesitated, the silence laden with unsaid words. "There are debts that need to be settled, and dangers that stalk those marked by shadows. I'm not asking for blood. Just trust me to guide you through this." My instinct screamed in protest, warning me that this could lead us to depths we weren't prepared to face. But I looked into his eyes, searching for the care that I hoped still flickered behind his composed facade. "I don't know if I can trust you. I don't even know who you really are." "Then let me show you," he replied, his voice an echo of promises I didn't know if I could believe. "I can help you understand more, not just about the money or the threats, but your family's history. Secrets that might explain why you were drawn into this life." As the words sank in, a heavy pulse of dread settled in my chest. Just as uncertainty seemed poised to swallow me whole, I felt something shift, the weight of both fear and a sliver of hope. In this labyrinth of choices, I stood at a precipice, forcing myself to confront the very essence of what my family had become. Before I could respond, a sharp knock again shattered our moment, more urgent, more insistent. I spun toward the door, heart racing anew, a deep foreboding settling in. Victor's expression closed off, shadows shifting across his face. "Stay here," he commanded, his voice low like a secret between conspirators. I hesitated, torn between the worlds pressing in from all angles. And just as the door was about to open, I caught a glimpse of his watchful eyes, a desperate plea lingering in the silence. Who was he really trying to protect, the family I knew, or the secrets he guarded? The door swung open, and I braced myself, my heart in my throat, as a familiar face emerged out of the darkness, wrapped in shadows. "I'm here to talk about your family's future," she said, a self-assured smile illuminating the tenuous atmosphere. The weight of the moment shifted, shifting gears in the fragile fabric of our lives, the world from which I thought I could escape only tightening like a noose around me once more. As Alex watched from the hallway, I felt the fragile threads unraveling. The truth lay just within reach, yet mirage-like, it evaded my grasp. My heart raced, looking from the familiar face standing in the doorway to Victor, whose expression had darkened. I felt like a pawn caught in an unanticipated game, trapped between sorrows and promises, navigating a terrain I'd never meant to enter. The air between us thickened with unspoken themes of loyalty, desperation, and the ever-present threat of instability. "Who are you?" I managed to stammer, keeping my voice steady as my pulse quickened. The woman at the door smirked, a glint of confidence sparking in her eyes. She was someone I recognized from our neighborhood, Jess, the socialite who always seemed to weave through our lives like an elusive wisp of sunlight. "Just someone who's invested in helping families like yours," she said, her tone dripping with a sweetness that seemed almost too saccharine to be sincere. "I heard about your troubles, and I thought we could come to an understanding." Victor shifted beside me, an imperceptible tension coiling in his presence. "What do you want?" he asked, his voice low but edged with an authority that demanded respect. Jess held her hands up, palms out, as if to calm a wild animal. "I want to help, really. But your family's ongoing debts, they could come at a great cost. I have the means to make them disappear." "What does that mean?" I pressed, growing angrier with each syllable. "Nothing comes without a price." "What are you asking for?" She stepped forward, the warmth in her voice contradicting the chill creeping up my spine. "All I need is for you to open up to the possibilities and allow me into your life. Together, we could create opportunities that you've never deemed possible." "What kind of opportunities?" Alex peeked from behind my leg, eyes wide with innocent curiosity. I felt an instinctual protectiveness surge through me, a caution directed at the polished veneer Jess presented. "Think about it, young man. A future where you don't have to worry about rent or school supplies. Where your mother can rest without the weight of financial burdens." She knelt so she was closer to his eye level, compelling him into a world of adult complications that should never have entered his reality. Impossibly charming, I realized, she wielded her allure like a weapon. "Stay away from my brother," I interjected fiercely, stepping in front of Alex, moving instinctively to shield him from the insidious tendrils of adult greed. "If you really want to help us, then just go away, don't be rude." She shot back, her facade of charm cracking just slightly. "I'm offering you a way out." Victor scoffed, crossing his arms in a deliberate show of disapproval. "And what's the catch? I know how these things work." "What's your angle, Jess?" Unfazed, she straightened, returning to her queenly poise. "No catch, Victor. Just potential even for you." I remained caught between their confrontation, feeling more isolated with each passing moment. Jess looked to me with hawk-like attention, as if sensing my internal battle. "You're afraid of taking the leap," she mused, tilting her head. "Understandable, but you have to ask yourself, where has being careful gotten you? Look at your situation, getting into bed with someone like you can make it worse," Victor replied, his words sharp like daggers. His words hung between us like smoke, and as Jess' smile faltered, I felt the weight of our reality pressing against my lungs. There's truth to what he's saying, I said carefully. We've lost so much already. I don't want to risk more, your family is already at risk, she declared, her voice now tinged with impatience. I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here to save you. I glanced at Victor, whose face now revealed a mixture of disbelief and anger. You think she's going to save you? With what? Deceit and promises devoid of substance. Don't listen to her, understand, just think about it. I've already done my homework. I know you're struggling, I know your mother works double shifts, I know the threats surrounding you. I offer support, resources. All in exchange for a small favor. A small favor? I echoed, voice thick with skepticism. Yes, Jess said, the smile returning as she straightened to her full height. You would simply need to trust me. In time, that trust could open doors to things you haven't even dreamed of. I could launch Alex into a better school, provide you with a fresh start. Who knows where that can lead? Don't even, I snapped, my voice rising in fervor. You have no idea how hard we've fought. Why would I turn over everything we built just to chase some fantasy? Victor shot me a concerned look, silently warning me to hold my ground as Jess moved closer, prowling like a predator. Chasing a fantasy? She echoed, face a mask of indignation. You call this a fantasy when I could help you make it a reality? Suddenly, a cacophony erupted behind us, a crash that echoed through the hall. My heart raced as I spun to see Alex had knocked over a stack of books, his wide eyes filled with fear, confusion, and desperation to understand the adult world he had unwittingly been thrust into. Alex! I called, dread pooling within me. Just as I rushed toward him, my mind buzzed with urgency, an instinct to shield him from this spiraling encounter. Before I reached him, Jess called after me, her voice laced with a taunting warmth. You're walking a dangerous line, dear. You think you want protection, but be careful. Trust is a dangerous game as well. The answers may not be as simple as you wish. As I scooped Alex into my arms, I felt the weight of so many unsaid truths pressing on my heart. The room swirled with an unsettling energy, a sense of foreboding awakening parts of me I didn't know existed. We're not playing games, I muttered, clutching him tightly. Victor stepped forward, but before he could respond, an urgent knock echoed again, this time violent and desperate. A sudden consciousness flared within me, a realization that whatever lay outside our fragile world held even darker shadows. What now? I breathed, holding Alex protectively as another voice drifted through the doorframe. Open up. We need to talk. I looked at Victor, and we both understood then, utterly entwined in this moment. The stakes were rising, and the battle for our family's future was spinning into chaos. We weren't just teetering on the edge of uncertainty anymore, we were on the brink of a storm that threatened to engulf us whole. The knock reverberated through the room, each rapid jolt that sent shockwaves of anxiety through my chest. My instincts screamed to shield Alex from whatever lay beyond the door, yet I also understood that ignoring it wouldn't make our problems disappear. Victor's eyes flickered with a mix of concern and defiance. It was clear he was ready to confront any threat that would dare cross the threshold of our fragile sanctuary. Stay behind me, I whispered to Alex, whose grip on my leg tightened like a lifeline. Whatever storm approached, I would be his shield, just as I had promised our mother before she left for the night shift. The figure at the door shifted, illumined by the dim light from the hallway, a shadow dressed in uncertainty that echoed through me. Tension thickened the air as Victor moved deliberately toward the door, his steps grounded and purposeful. We are not interested in any trouble, he declared firmly, his voice a blend of assertiveness and underlying worry. As he grasped the doorknob, a shadow flitted across his face, a moment of hesitation that sent my heart racing. Victor, wait. I called out, instinctively knowing it could be anything. What if it's someone from? Before I could finish, the door swung open. A man stood there, breathless and wild-eyed. He was familiar, the kind of face I'd seen flicker through our lives but whose name I could never recall. Enough of a connection to evoke both surprise and fear. Good, you're here, he said, his voice shaky, but urgent. I need to talk to you both. It's about your mother. The ground beneath me seemed to tremble. My heart plummeted, the knot in my stomach tightening painfully. What do you mean about our mother? I demanded, the fierceness surprising even myself. Just listen, he urged, crossing the threshold into our haven without invitation. His breath came out in soft, shaky bursts as if every word was a weight he struggled to carry. There's something you don't know. Something she hasn't told you, then tell us. I snapped, desperation tinged with dread, eyes darting to Victor, who looked just as apprehensive. What has happened? Is she okay? Your mother is working for someone she shouldn't be, he confessed, his gaze flickering between us. It's dangerous for her, and now it's dangerous for you. She's caught up in something bigger than she can handle, and I think they're coming for her. The implications rushed through me, a tidal wave of fear crashing against the shore of hope that had barely taken root. Jess' words echoed in my mind, weaving their insidious charm around my desperation like a noose. Just hours ago, she had stood before us offering salvation. Now, the truth of our mother's condition transformed it into a cruel illusion I refused to believe. Who? Victor demanded, his tone sharpening like a knife. Who is after her? I can't. He glanced around, paranoia etched into his every feature, and suddenly, his attention snapped to Jess, still lingering in the doorway, watching with that disconcerting smile. We need to get you out of here. Now, before I could protest, Jess stepped forward, and a dark light flickered in her eyes. You see? This is exactly why you need my help. Your mother is in way over her head, and whatever has been promised to you both will unravel in front of you if you don't listen, and why should we trust you? Victor shot back, arms crossed defiantly. Because I know who's behind this, Jess said, her voice lowering to a conspiratorial tone, and I have the resources to protect you. But it's not going to come free. There are strings attached. We're not making deals with you. I exclaimed, feeling both my heart and spirit fraying with the weight of everything I had to protect. The man interjected, we don't have time for this. Your mother deserves better. Stop, I shouted, a sudden wave of courage swelling within as the storm of our lives eclipsed the moment. We should focus on her whatever this is, we can't let it swallow us whole. At that moment, Alex pulled at my leg, his innocent voice barely above a whisper. What are we doing, Anna? Is Mommy in trouble? His small, frightened face filled me with a rush of protectiveness that surged around my heart. I knelt to meet his gaze, making sure he felt my unwavering presence. It's going to be okay, baby. I'm right here. As I tried to anchor Alex in newfound resolve, I realized I was the one adrift. Jess's sly smile threatened to overwhelm us, the unknown edges of our reality were fraying, and I felt the very ground shifting beneath my feet. Just then, the door creaked open wider, accompanied by the scent of rain-soaked earth and a disturbance that echoed like a grim harbinger. My heart stopped as I looked beyond the tangled ensemble in the room. A figure still shrouded in shadow lingered just outside our haven, and in the dim light, their features began to sharpen, revealing a face I thought I had left behind, stained with heartbreak and betrayal. Anna, the figure rasped, voice trembling like a fragile thread breaking under immense weight. The moment drew dangerously close, a perilous cliff from which I had no idea if we would soar or fall. My God, what are you doing here? I stammered, engulfed in a swirl of conflicting emotions. Would we spiral into chaos again, or was this the moment of reckoning that could either save us or shatter us for good? As the figure stepped fully into the light, a crescendo of shock surged through me. Ethan. His presence was an intrusion and a lifeline wrapped in one unexpected package. My heart pounded like war drums, each beat a reminder of the past I had buried in the debris of dreams long lost. What are you doing here? I gasped, my voice a mix of disbelief and confusion flooding my mind, lending weight to the desperate circumstances surrounding us. Alex peered around me, his innocent eyes widening in recognition but devoid of comprehension. Ethan's face, once so familiar and comforting, looked strained. The lines around his mouth spoke of burdens I had never witnessed before. I came looking for you. I heard things, Anna. About your mother. The man who had recoiled from the doorway seemed to recognize Ethan too, and a flicker of concern crossed his face. He's not safe here, he warned, urgency sharpening his voice into a knife. You need to leave now. Why would I trust you? Ethan shot back, his arms crossing defensively. "Where's your proof? You cannot just pull them away without knowing what's at stake." "We're not going anywhere," Victor interjected, stepping closer to me. "We need to understand what he's talking about first. You might be putting them in danger, enough." I clutched Alex tighter, the warmth of his small body grounding me. The emotions swirled around me like a tornado, threatening to tear apart my resolve, but I needed to hold it all together for him. "Ethan," I said, softening my tone, craving to pierce through the chaos. "What do you know? What's happening with my mom? She's entangled in something illegal. I've heard whispers in the communities I've been in contact with. There's a group that will stop at nothing to get what they want from her. She's lost, Anna. If you don't act quickly, she could be caught in the crossfire." Each word fell like boulders against the fragile stalemate we had been holding, and a myriad of emotions churned within me: anger, affection, fear, and a flicker of hope. "You think I don't know that?" I deflected, though tears pricked at the corners of my eyes. "You didn't need to come back. You didn't come back to help us when we needed it." Ethan flinched at my outburst, stepping closer, his earnestness clashing with the vulnerability etched in his features. "I'm here now, aren't I? You might hate me for what I did, but I've tried to find a way to reach out. I wanted to help you when I could, but it wasn't safe. I didn't want to put you in danger." I wanted to scream at him for the distances he had maintained. For pushing me away when all I craved was reassurance. But in the depths of his eyes, I could see a flicker of the boy I once knew, the one who was fiercely protective of everyone he loved. "Please, Anna, I need you to trust me. If we don't act soon, I don't know what's going to happen to your mother." His desperate plea reverberated within me, mingling with the echo of his past promises. "What do we need to do?" Victor asked, shifting the focus as he edged closer to my side, determination sparking in his tone. "Whatever it takes, this group's connections run deep. We need to get to her and find out what she knows before they realize her family is a target." It's a race against time. Just as those words settled in, Alex tugged at my shirt, pulling me back to an innocent reality I couldn't quite escape from. "Are we going to get Mommy?" His small voice was filled with worry and a haunting recognition that twisted my heart tighter, a knot of desperation forming anew. "Yes, Alex," I forced a smile, hoping to shield him from the gravity of our situation. "We're going to find her." Ethan caught my gaze, a storm of emotions entwining us. I saw the fire of determination igniting within him, and without another thought, I knew I could either let the past consume me or embrace what lay before us. The storm rumbled in the distance, as if sensing the turmoil brewing within our fragile haven, and an involuntary chill skated down my spine. Just then, it dawned on me, realization creeping in like the melancholic whispers of fate. What if the danger hasn't only been from outside? The man who had spoken earlier shifted nervously, glancing at Jess, who stood still and silent, her predatory smile lingering beneath the tension. My pulse quickened, an inkling of intuition pricked at my consciousness. "Jess," I said slowly, the unease clenching at my throat, "what do you know about Ethan? About his involvement?" Her eyes narrowed, the shift in atmosphere palpable, and I sensed the lie creeping into the air. The truth felt like a gaping wound ready to fester, and as Ethan opened his mouth to speak, a chilling realization washed over me. When I turned back to him, the expression on his face screamed the unspeakable truths hidden beneath layers of past choices, and in that perilous moment, as the world held its breath, I prepared myself for the revelations that would change every fiber of my being. The shadows of betrayal lurked closer than I dared to imagine, and as Ethan stepped forward, forcing the truth into the light, the weight of our fractured histories loomed over us like a storm preparing to break. The evening sky turned an ominous gray as the storm approached, its heavy clouds swirling like dark omens above us. I could feel my heartbeat quicken as I searched Ethan's gaze, desperate to grasp the truth that had eluded us for so long. "You need to tell me everything now, Ethan," I demanded, my voice firm but laced with uncertainty. "No more secrets." That he shifted uncomfortably, uncertainty clouding his features. "I swear I came here to help, Anna. But it's more complicated than it seems." The urgency in his voice caught me off guard, pulling at the thread of hope I had just started to weave through the chaos. I've been doing my own digging. Your mother's been involved in dealings that go deeper than just simple mistakes. Deeper how? Victor pressed, stepping closer, tightening the circle of protectiveness around me and Alex. Ethan inhaled sharply, his words heavy with a burden I could feel in my bones. There's money laundering, illicit contracts, things she was caught up in without even realizing it. The people she associated with feared dangerous. Alex squirmed in my arms, sensing the tension rising. I gently stroked his hair, whispering reassurances even as dread pooled in my stomach. Mommy wouldn't do anything like that, he mumbled, innocent belief permeating his voice that we don't know what she was forced into. Alex, I murmured softly, desperate to diagnose the sorrow flickering in the depths of his eyes. But we're going to bring her home, she's already been hiding, Ethan continued, urgency shaking his tone. The group's been looking for her, and they're getting restless. We've run out of time. Fear gripped me like a vice, but within that fear, an ember of resilience sparked alive. It pulsated in sync with my heartbeat, reminding me of the strength I needed to draw from. Show me how to help her, I implored, meeting Ethan's fierce resolve with my own, but before he could respond, the man lurking in the back shifted uneasily. You need to be cautious, Anna, he warned, like a shadow inching towards conflict. The more you dig, the deeper you sink into danger. That I glanced at him, skepticism coloring my expression. So what are you suggesting? That we run away again? Leave her behind, she's already in too deep, Anna. You don't know what you're dealing with. Or maybe you don't know what I can handle, I retorted, the heat of determination overcoming the fear. Ethan's eyes met mine. We need to decide now, Anna. I can't do this without you. But if you're in, you need to be all in. In the distance, thunder rumbled, mirroring the tumult within me. I weighed the stakes, my heart warring against its instinct to shield Alex from harm. Then I'm in. We're going to save my mom. The desperation around us shifted, an unspoken acknowledgement hung in the air. As we formed a pact, I felt fragments of my old self returning, flickers of the girl who once dreamed without fear. Yet there was still an ache I couldn't identify looming within the confines of my heart. At that moment, Jess stepped forward, her demeanor abrupt and commanding. You truly believe there's a chance for a happy ending? Her smile was sharp, almost cruel. You're aware that hope can often lead to pain, right? You might end up losing everyone you loved. That I felt bile rise in my throat from her words as reality crashed around me, but I refused to be chained down by her predictions. Instead, I reached for Ethan's hand, squeezing tightly, a silent promise to face whatever lay ahead together. Let them come for us, I asserted fiercely. We'll fight together. Ethan looked down at our intertwined fingers, and for a brief moment, tenderness bloomed. Then let's prepare. I have a few leads I can follow up on tonight. But we have to keep our guard up. They may already know we're onto them. As we started to strategize a plans filled with hope laced with danger, I felt a disconcerting sense circling the air, like heaviness pressed against my chest. And just then, Alex tugged on my sleeve again, the innocence in his eyes startling me. Mommy's gonna be okay, right? His voice cracked with faith, a fragile thread woven between us. I hesitated, grappling with the daunting uncertainty. Of course, she is. The promise rang hollow, a bitter reminder that the truth I was trying to shield him from felt as malleable as the storm clouds closing in. Ethan and I shared a glance filled with unspoken fear, the weight of the looming confrontation creeping in like an unwelcome guest. This was a gamble we were taking, and the stakes were nothing short of life and death. But before I could voice a plan or even offer Alex more reassurances, my phone buzzed alarmingly in my pocket. I pulled it out to find an unsaved number flashing on the screen. My heart plummeted as an ominous truth resonated. This could be the call we were dreading, a confirmation that the shadows I sensed lurking nearby were real. Don't answer that, Jess warned, taking a step forward, her smile transforming into something sinister and full of malice. You don't want to know the answers. Trust me, some truths are better left buried. The air thickened with uncertainty, and as I prepared myself to answer, a harsh voice crackled over the line, sending chills down my spine. We know what you're doing, Anna. And it's time to make a choice. Your mother's safety depends on your next move. The world around me faded as a wave of dread washed over me, solidifying the truth that this fight was bigger than I had ever imagined, and the risk had just become too real. I looked at Ethan, the weight of impending choices threatening to tear us apart, an unseen fracture emerging between us as the reality of the threats we're facing loomed ever closer, and just like that, standing on the brink of chaos, I realized that this battle had only just begun. The storm had unleashed its fury outside, a cacophony of wind and rain drumming against the windows like frantic hands pleading for refuge. Inside, the tension was palpable, the air thick with uncertainty as I clutched my phone tightly, my thumb hovering over the screen. The voice on the line rattled in my ears, each word an insidious thread tugging at the frayed edges of my resolve. Anna. The voice continued, dripping with malice, time is running out. You have until midnight to decide. Or, face the consequences. That I swallowed hard, my heart racing as I barely registered the room around me, too consumed by the threat echoing in my mind. Ethan instinctively moved closer, reading the panic etched across my face, his presence a grounding force amidst the chaos swirling in my thoughts. Who was that? He asked urgently, but I could only shake my head, still staring at the phone as if it were a venomous snake ready to strike. Each second felt like a countdown, the repercussions heavy and omnipresent. If I didn't protect my mother, what could she be facing? Whispers of doubt clouded my mind, twisting around the edges of my purpose. What if my determination put them in even greater danger? What if I couldn't save her at all? I felt Alex's small hands on my arm, pulling me back to the surface of my present reality. His trusting eyes locked onto mine, and I realized my fear was not just mine. Anna Marie, it spread into the very core of our unconventional family. It's going to be okay, Mom, he whispered, his voice fragile yet surprisingly steady. You're going to save Grandma. I know it. His innocence both shored up my determination and shattered my hope. How could I promise him anything when my own belief was hanging by a thread? Anna, please, Jess interjected, her voice almost pleading, yet laced with a touch of mockery. Don't be naive. This isn't a fairy tale, and you can't save everyone. Sometimes, running is the safest choice. Maybe the safest choice isn't worth having if it means losing everything. I shot back sharply, a fire igniting in my throat. I won't abandon my mom, and I won't abandon us. The storm outside raged on, matching the turmoil stirring within me. But beneath that layer of fear, a flicker of determination ignited. I refused to let despair dictate my actions. Suddenly, a new thought crashed into me. I had allies in this fight. Eternal gratitude for Ethan, who stood resolutely beside me. This battle was not one I had to fight alone. Ethan met my gaze and, without breaking eye contact, squeezed my hand reassuringly. We need to respond strategically. What did they want? With a deep breath, I shared the ultimatum, my shoulders squared as I fought against the rising tide of apprehension. The sharp lines of concern etched across Ethan's features deepened, and I could sense the weight of our shared resolve, binding us with an unspoken promise to confront whatever lay ahead, no matter the cost. Midnight, he murmured, his voice low and focused, already mapping out our next steps. Then we need a plan. I have contacts who can help us pinpoint your mother's location. Jess huffed under her breath. More people involved. That seems reckless, Ethan. But before he could respond, the subdued sound of rain pattered against the window, momentarily distracting me. I turned my gaze back to the storm, clutching the phone nervously. It felt like the world outside mirrored the chaos spiraling in our lives, nature itself simmering in a state of unrest. And then it struck. Meth storm was no mere backdrop, it was an echo of our battle against the shadows threatening to swallow us whole. Please, Anna, Jess said quietly, her demeanor shifting to something more vulnerable. This is serious. Walking this path can lead to dark places you'll wish you'd never seen. Or perhaps, I replied with newfound clarity, confronting that darkness may reveal the light we never knew was there. As night fell, methods began to form like delicate wisps of smoke. I could sense Ethan's unwavering determination beside me, but the storm's howl picked up, a reminder that danger loomed at every turn. Even Alex, who had remained so oblivious until now, was beginning to feel twinges of fear creeping into his heart. That we have to stay awake and alert, I urged, my voice thick with the unpleasant mix of anxiety and fierce determination. If they come for her, we need to be ready to do whatever it takes. Ethan nodded, willing to risk it all, yet I saw the flash of fear crackling in his eyes behind the iron mask of confidence. It was a heavy weight that pressed down on both of us, the uncertainty gnawing at the edges of our brave front. We had no idea what lay ahead, only that there were shadows lurking, darker than either of us had anticipated. Okay, Ethan said, a resolve fortifying his stance. Well, make a list, names, details, anything that can lead us to her. Let's divide and conquer. Just then, Alex spoke softly, can I please help? His eyes shone brightly, unwavering hope burning within them. Of course you can, buddy, I said, trying to mask the tremble in my voice, kneeling down to meet his gaze. Your job is very important. His face lit up, naive optimism embracing the impossible task of weaving through uncertainty. As we began to compile what little intel we had, the clock on the wall ticked like a turbulent heart, time slipping through our fingers. What we would do in the next few hours could be monumental or catastrophic, and uncertainty gripped me, but I couldn't allow it to extinguish the fire glowing within. Then suddenly, as if conjured by the storm itself, a shrill knock echoed against the door, sending shockwaves through the fragile shell of our plans. Ethan looked at me, panic snaking up the back of his spine, while Jess' eyes darted between us, confusion flickering at the edges of her stern expression. Who is that? She hissed, conviction slipping into the edges of her voice. That I don't know, I whispered, heart pounding violently against my ribs, knowing this moment could alter everything. With one look at Ethan, I took a deep breath and moved toward the door, heart racing in synchronization with the echoes of the raging storm. I had no idea which side awaited me on the other side. I could either find hope, or the heaviness of betrayal stood waiting with every dark possibility, but I had come too far to turn back now. That as my trembling hand reached for the doorknob, the reality of the choice swept over me like the chill of the wind outside, this moment echoing the unyielding truth that danger was ever present, but so was the unshakable determination to fight for my family. The world outside roared in anticipation, and as I slowly opened the door, my breath caught in my throat, the storm inside me just beginning to reveal its true violence. The wind howled through the gap beneath the door as I hesitated, breathless, my heart pounding like a war drum. Each second stretched until time felt like a blurred shadow, the consequences of my action heavy on the horizon. I needed to know who or what lay beyond that threshold, but fear held me captive. Ethan's hand grazed my back, steady and warm, and Jess frowned from her postams. Alex stood behind me, his small fingers wrapped around mine, grounding me as I twisted the doorknob ever so slightly, peeking into the tempest beyond. The door swung open with a creak, revealing a figure bathed in the chaotic light of the storm. Raindrops clung to the hem of an impeccably tailored coat, glistening like tears of the restless sky. I blinked, trying to register the sight before me. The man was tall, his hair slicked back, eyes reflecting both determination and a hint of desperation. "I'm here to help you," he declared, his voice cutting through the roar of the storm. The confident cadence belonged to a stranger, yet something familiar flickered in the depths of his hazel gaze. "Who are you?" I managed to ask, heart sputtering wildly, shifting my weight backward, ready to close the door at the slightest indication of danger. "My name is Lucas Hawthorne," he replied smoothly. "I'm a family friend. Your mother has been trying to reach you." The mention of my mother sent a jolt through me, piercing my defiance with confusion and fear. "What do you mean, trying to reach me?" Ethan stepped closer, a protective stance building around us, for once at a loss. "How do you know her?" "There isn't time," Lucas snapped, glancing over his shoulder as if the storm might bring foes cloaked in the wind. "Please, let me in. I promise I can help you find her." Jess crossed her arms tightly, suspicion sharpening her features. "How do we know you're not lying?" "Because," Lucas replied softly, raising his hands in a placating gesture, "if I had sinister intentions, I wouldn't have knocked. You're in danger, and we need to act quickly. The clock is ticking." My thoughts tangled faster than the gale outside, and I glanced back at Ethan, whose furrowed brow mirrored my own skepticism. I knew nothing of this man, yet, my instincts warred against one another, pulling me with the gravity of desperation. The memory of my mother weighed too heavily on my heart, a low hum of urgency urging me to take this leap that I stepped aside, my heart pounding with both trepidation and hope. Once inside, Lucas observed our makeshift command center of scattered papers and half-scribbled notes. The hint of a smile crossed his lips, but there was no room for levity amidst the chaos surrounding us. "I've been monitoring the situation," he began, his voice steady as though laying out a plan in the eye of a storm. "Your mother knows something vital, but she's been kept in the dark about your safety. There are people looking for her and for you." Fear coiled around my heart, a grip so tight I could barely breathe. "What do you mean?" "Who are they?" "Powerful people, Anna. People who think they can manipulate you because of the truth they hold," Lucas explained. "But they're wrong. You don't have to be alone in this fight." His fervent belief intrigued me. Why would someone this well-dressed and affluent care about my family? Desperation spurred my next thought: could I trust him, embrace his proposal, or was this simply another layer in a treacherous game? My mind was weighed down with uncertainty, but I had to push forward. "What's your plan?" I asked, steeling myself against the rising tide of dread as he began to unveil the strategy. "First, we need to gather information," he explained. "We won't just rely on intuition. We need to find out exactly where your mother is and who's behind this. I have resources that can help." Suddenly, a low rumble interrupted, the lights above flickered precariously, casting shadows that danced sinisterly across the walls. Outside, the storm escalated, battering the windows with more ferocity as if mirroring my increasing heartbeat. Ethan placed a hand on my shoulder, drawing my attention back to him. "Are you sure about this, Anna? This isn't just a conversation. This is serious, more serious than I could ever have imagined." But the thought of my mother, possibly in danger or worse, fueled a fierce flame within me. "Two don't think we have a choice." "Then we'll have to move quickly," Lucas reminded, urgency lacing his tone. "But know this, dangerous people won't hesitate. They'll come for you if they suspect you're onto them." Just like that, reality sank its teeth even deeper. The shadows I'd known to be lurking were hounds at our heels. Would I lead my family deeper into a darkness I sought to escape, or finally break the chains? Without warning, a loud crash echoed outside, shaking our tiny fortress. The adrenaline coursed through my veins as I clutched Alec's small hand, drawing courage from his unwavering faith in me. He deserved a life far from this chaos, yet the stakes were larger than life itself. Then, as if the universe took a sharp breath, I suddenly realized, there was one thing Lucas hadn't accounted for. One card I still had to play. Before I could voice it, my phone buzzed violently in my pocket, and dread swept over us, swirling ominously as I uncovered that which I'd hoped not to find. The screen displayed an incoming message, not from a friend or family, but from a contact who painted a darker picture, a name I recognized all too well. "You have until midnight to decide, or face the consequences." With a heart clenched in confusion, I stared at Lucas, Jake, and Ethan. The storm had only begun to awaken, and with it, choices loomed darker than ever. As the clock ticked ever closer to midnight, the weight of the decision sat heavy upon my shoulders, the shadows creeping closer, hungry for resolution. But it felt like hope lingered, too, just out of reach, and as I braced myself for what came next, I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't merely about saving my mother anymore, it was about saving every last piece of our souls caught in the unforgiving tide. The lights flickered again, battling against the darkness that threatened to consume us. I felt the apprehension brewing inside me, a storm mirroring the one raging outside. It felt surreal. This wasn't just an ordinary night. This was the culmination of everything I had fought for, and I could sense an inevitability closing in. "Anna, we have to get moving. Time is not on our side," Lucas urged, his voice steady despite the chaos surrounding us. I watched as he scanned the room, taking in every detail like a keen hawk searching for its prey. Ethan stood beside me, a fortress of confidence that I clung to as if climbing an emotional mountain where every step thrummed with uncertainty. "Where do we even start?" I asked, my voice taut with anxiety. "We need to find my mother before it's too late," Lucas nodded, his expression hardening. I have contacts who know the underground network surrounding your mother's dealings. It won't be easy, but we can't waste time. If those people know we're onto them, they'll strike harder. My heart sank. The weight of those words hung heavily between us. What if we fail? I whispered, desperately trying to keep the panic at bay. Failure isn't an option, Ethan replied, squeezing my hand tightly. We will figure this out, together. The fierce resolve woven in his tone ignited a flicker of hope in my heart. I steadied my breath. It was now or never. Okay then, I said, determination slipping into the cracks of my fear. Tell me what we need to do. Lucas began relaying his plan, mapping out an approach with an impressive precision that soothed the fraying edges of my anxiety. I watched and listened carefully, absorbing every piece of information, every word, digging deep into the possibilities layered within our borrowed time. Just then, a loud crash of thunder rattled the windows, making Alex squeal and cling to my shirt. I knelt down, wrapping him in a tight embrace. It's just the storm, buddy. We're going to be okay. As I reassured him, I caught the pained look on Ethan's face, shadows dancing across his features from the flickering lights. He wanted to protect us, yet at that moment, we were both vulnerable and so deeply entwined in this struggle. Lucas snapped an urgent question back into focus. We need to decide quickly. Are you in or not? My heart raced as I locked eyes with each of them. Every instinct screamed at me to run, to shield Alex away from this life of uncertainty and chaos. But what good would running do? I'd seen the repercussions of hiding too many times. It would only lead to more pain in the end that I am in, I declared, steadying my breath. Whatever it takes. Lucas nodded, satisfied but wary of what lay ahead. There was a flicker of something else in his eyes, but I couldn't quite put my finger on it. Before I could dissect that thought, Lucas pointed toward the door. We have to go now. Ethan remained glued by my side, determined to stay close as we stepped into the raging storm, the rain hitting our faces like icy needles. Bracing ourselves against the relentless wind, we formed a tight-knit circle. The streets felt foreign, yet familiar. The chaos roared, almost beckoning us into its dance. Stay close to me, Alex, I urged as we moved slowly through the shadows. The facade of safety eroded with each step we took toward the unraveling threat. I felt the heartbeat of our urgency echoing in the pit of my stomach, yet with every careful inhale, I also felt cracks forming in the shield I had built around my heart. That I can't handle this, Anna. Alex whispered, his voice trembling. What if something bad happens? I knelt down to meet his innocent gaze, seeing the fluttering doubt carving itself into his once kaleidoscopic world. I hear you, sweetheart. But I promise you that I will do everything I can to keep you safe. We're going to find Grandma. We navigated through winding alleys and old street lamps, casting eerie shadows that danced upon brick walls, creating a tapestry of uncertainty. Ethan maintained a vigilant watch, and as doubt crept in, I found comfort in his presence. But the fear gnawed at my insides. I could sense the darkness closing in, tainting every fleeting moment of hope. As Lucas led us into an old abandoned warehouse, the disarray encapsulated in the shattered windows and graffiti-splashed walls felt like a physical manifestation of the confusion and turmoil swirling within me. Well, make our stand here, he said, voice low as we ducked inside. It's not the safest, but we have to pull whatever resources we can. The stillness of the warehouse was surreal, a stark contrast to the storm outside. Lucas produced a small device and began typing furiously, occasional glances darting to Ethan and me. All that remained was waiting, the hopeless waiting through murky waters, uncertainty closing in even tighter. Tell me everything that you found out, I pushed, the urgency draping over my voice with a taut edge. Before he could respond, Lucas paused and looked at me slowly, measuring my response. There are 3 names I've identified, people who have serious leverage over your mother and who are pulling the strings. My heart raced as he laid out the complexity, each name resonating with dread. And I need you to understand, Anna. These people are not just criminals, they invoke fear that's palpable. They won't hesitate to act. I swallowed hard, bracing for the oncoming storm of fear gnawing away at my insides. Suddenly an alarm rang, primal fear whipping through me like fire. My heart stuttered as Lucas grabbed my arm. "They're here." I felt the rush of adrenaline flood my veins. "We need to hide. Now." As we hastily maneuvered through the old structure, panic set in a venomous sense coursed through me. I could hear the distant footsteps converging, a reminder that we were forever entangled in a web that was slowly suffocating us. "Alex, we need to be quiet, okay? Just breathe lightly," I whispered urgently, urging him to follow closely behind me. We ducked behind an old rusty crate, my heart racing as I strained to hear the muffled voices drawing closer. "Look," Lucas hissed as he pointed out a corner, suggesting we crawl further into the labyrinth of the warehouse. Each movement felt calculated, waiting silently against the tide of fear massing just outside our walls. I could feel the quivering warmth of Alex against me, the way his small heart beat in sync with mine, terrified yet resolute, but I couldn't let him be afraid. I had come too far to let the chaos take us down now. Overhead, the shadows danced sinisterly, and as we settled deeper within the muffled depths of the warehouse, I could feel the adrenaline pulsing in my veins. No longer just a fight for my mother, I was now wrestling with the very identity I'd forged in the ashes of my past. I battled between embracing the darkness threatening to surface and the flickering light that held my resolve steady. That I cracked open a sliver of space, peering out carefully through the crates. The indistinct voices grew louder, and my heart sank as a familiar figure emerged through the gloomy haze. It was Jess. "I knew you'd show up," she laughed coldly, her tone dripping with malice as she approached the stillness of our sanctuary. "Lucas," I hissed quietly, my eyes wide with betrayal. "What does she want?" Lucas turned pale and shook his head gravely. "She's tied into this all along." Jess moved slowly, a predator patiently calculating her next move. "You see, dear Anna. You stand on the precipice of choices, deciding what's worth more. Your family's safety, or the truth." Her words cut deeper than I could fathom. I could feel Alex shuddering beside me, sensing the darkness creeping in. "You think you can trust him?" Jess taunted, her eyes narrowing. "The boy you once adored." Tension thickened the air. "Shut up, Jess," Ethan retorted, stepping slightly forward, fully ready to fight. "You have no idea the lengths we'll go to protect Anna and her family." "Oh, darling Ethan, it's not about protecting anymore," she purred, fixing her piercing gaze on me. "It's about making the right decision at the perfect moment." The atmosphere felt suffocating, the walls around us pulsating with unseen threats. It was dizzying, the battle between light and dark. "Confusion and clarity, enough games," I replied, feeling every word reverberate through my heart. "You don't understand the sacrifices we're willing to make to save someone we love." For the first time, I stepped forward, feigning confidence despite the fear trying to claim dominion over me. Jess smirked, her betrayal cutting deeper than fangs. "Love? You think that will save you? Your mother has already made her choice, that's what defines us." Suddenly, a loud crash echoed through the warehouse, an abrupt entrance I hadn't anticipated causing everyone to freeze in their tracks. I turned, dread lacing through me as a sense of finality loomed overhead. "Enough!" A man shouted, striding into the dim light, a figure eclipsing the hope we had left. It was the face I had never expected to see, a stranger who had become synonymous with my family's unraveling. "You should have stayed away." Every breath halted as the realization dawned this was not just an end, but the beginning of a convergence that would alter everything. Here, where shadows intertwined with anguish and love, I knew this fight had evolved. The stakes were higher than the whispers of danger that lingered in the air. My family's very essence depended on the choices made tonight. Ethan placed an arm around me, anchoring me in the chaos swirling like a tempest outside our door. And as I stood there, waiting for the inevitable conclusion, a manifestation of every fear, I could feel the tremor of hope edging its way to the surface. That it wasn't just my mother's legacy we were fighting for anymore. It was the story that bound us together, the resilience of love that carved through each sacrifice, softening the jagged edges of fear poised to suffocate us. "This isn't over," I said, voice fierce as I threw challenge into the eyes of the tempest unfolding around me. We will fight for everything and everyone we love. In that moment, the storm promised to make our stand, an echo of power shimmering in the distance. Whatever awaited us beyond the darkness of the warehouse, I knew we were about to face it as one, and it would either hold the echoes of our doom or carve a path only defined by the light we were willing to embrace, and when the time came, I would no longer cower in shadows. I would step into the light.